Good morning. This is Shannon Lynch, your local realtor here in Charlotte, North Carolina. And my guest this morning is Bill Katsaros from Roma Homes. Good morning. How are you?
Morning. Thank you.
Thanks for joining me.
Yeah.
It's always a good time when we get together.
Absolutely.
So I thought we could maybe start a little bit about, just kind of let's give the audience a little bit of background about you. I mean, we've known each other, I don't know how many years now. It's been a bit.
5.
Has it been
Five
about
or
5?
6, yeah.
So I think the first time we met, and I don't even remember how we initially connected, but I do remember you were working on a renovation on a house, a rehab over in Villa Heights. Mm-hmm. And I think I had reached out to you to say, hey, I'd like to come see it.
Yeah.
Was that what it was, right?
Yep.
So, and I remember you coming to the door and you were in scrubs, which I found surprising. And you gave me a tour of the home that you were in the process of rehabbing. Was this your first? One of your first?
Not remembering exactly which house.
It's 2 or 3 houses in on the left side of.
So that was actually our
Pegram,
first new
Parson?
Construction.
Was that a new construction?
Was on Allen Street.
Okay.
But we had a renovation going on Pegram at the same time.
Okay.
Not necessarily our first. So our company, it's my wife and I, Alex, and we have a project manager now, Nick, and we also have a social media manager helping us with Tamara.
That's awesome.
But we're most builders in Charlotte are small businesses. We're like a micro business basically.
Yeah.
And I've been in real estate or flipping homes since I was 18.
No way.
And back in Detroit, I bought my first house in 1999 with my best friend.
Holy cow! I can't believe I didn't know this.
Yeah. It was. I put myself through school, and I knew I wasn't going to make enough money to put myself through school, getting a summer job. And so I was like, we got to figure something out. And this was back in the days of no loan or no doc loans. Mm-hmm. So you just go in and fill out. Yeah, I make X amount of dollars.
Sure you do.
I said, sure. Why not? And got a loan and flipped our first house. And it was a great, we'd get there about 10 o'clock every day and hang out, work all day. And then our buddies would come to the house at the end of the night.
Beer.
Yeah, exactly.
Beer o'clock.
What else are you going to do when you're 18, 19 years old? It was perfect.
God, I can't believe you were doing that so far back. That's so crazy.
So I did one every summer, through school, basically.
How did you even get started doing that? I mean, at 18, 19, that's young.
Yeah, it's definitely in the blood.
Yeah.
My grandfather, my dad had a lot of rentals.
It's a family thing.
Yep, and but it was actually an uncle who's since passed away who was kind of pushing me, and he's showing me some rent checks, and he's like, "Look," and he's like, "You could do this." And I was like, I'm 18. How can I do this? And kind of like helped nudge me in the direction of like, you can.
Yeah.
So it was definitely a family thing, and like I said, it's in the blood. So
how awesome is that?
Yeah, and it's one of those.
So they gave you some guidance as you were doing your first rehabs? They kind of walked you through the process?
My dad especially.
Yeah.
Yeah. My dad and actually my friend Steve, his dad. So the 4 of us spent a lot of time. And we did all the work. We didn't hire out anything. So between the 4 of us. So we got a lot of
learning, hands-on learning.
And this was on, everyone's kind of heard of 8 Mile in Detroit.
Oh, yeah. Well, how could you not, right?
Right. This was on 8 Mile.
No way.
Block off at 8 Mile. This was a rough house, and it was crawl space full of water. I'll never forget opening the refrigerator and seeing rodent droppings
in the fridge.
It's like, wow, that's a different level of.
Wow. I'm almost afraid to ask how they wind up in there.
Oh,
I don't know that I want to know.
Who knows? The refrigerator was thrown out, obviously. Yeah. So it was a lot of hands-on help and guidance. So when you met me when I was in scrubs, like you mentioned, I was.
You were doing medical that time.
Yeah, I went to school, got a degree. It was kind of in and out of different sales jobs. Flipping and rehabbing was always on the side.
Yeah.
But it was always the future. Like I knew that's what I wanted to do full time. Thankfully, I got out right about 2006 in Detroit.
Yeah.
Which is when everything really got bad.
Yeah.
A lot of people lost a lot of money. In Charlotte, people will complain about the recession, but like
Nothing like
nothing
Detroit.
like like up there for sure.
Yeah.
But I was selling medical equipment. That's what brought me to Charlotte. And when we started my wife and I got married, we bought our first house, went through several contractors, and then bought our first investment property that we were going to flip, and we did it together. I mean, we still have pictures of our website. Like, we painted the house, and we did a lot of. Yeah. I definitely started to hire out help, but I eventually hired a GC. I went through 3 GCs on the same flip. And
I don't think that's unusual, though.
Oh, it was insane. I always joke, it's like, at the end of the day, I can hire subs who don't show up. Like, I don't need to pay you a premium
to hire somebody
people who don't show up. I was like, I can do that. So I went and got my license in the middle of that rehab, and kind of put it on hold for a few months, studied my butt off, and got my license, and then decided we did an addition, which was fun. I was like, well, let's design an addition, and that's where really my eyes started to open of, okay, this is what I want to do. I think the 2 houses, it was one that we were doing them on side-by-side streets. One, that's where we met. One was a massive renovation but it was an existing 1901 mill house, like one of the real originals that we wanted to salvage.
I feel like that's the one I met you in, because you had done a wall of built-ins on the one side of the kitchen, which was different from what I had seen anybody else doing. Yeah. And you had repurposed salvaged heart of pine wood on I want to say it was on the hood vent or on the island, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, we did a couple houses. We did it on both.
And I thought that was fantastic. It was such a personal touch that even though everything felt updated and new inside, there was still this sense of history and character in your rehab, which I think, some really lack these days. Some can feel kind of cookie cutter if you don't really have a passion for it. Right. And I understand streamlining the process so that you can, knock out as many as you can knock out if that's your MO for your business. Right. But I almost feel like there should be some sort of fine line there that you don't lose your creativity and your individuality. And that's what I think is amazing about where you started and where you're at now, because now you're doing $1 million homes in Cotswold?
Yeah, we just finished our first 2 $1 million plus, potentially a couple more coming up, and almost everything in Charlotte is approaching $1 million anyway.
It's crazy.
We're like, I laugh because we're lining up and doing some bids on some projects that we have coming up, and I'm telling myself, it's like, well, we don't have the budget like we did. These houses are only going to be like $750,000. Like, when you say only, like,
isn't that insane? That's so crazy.
Which. I always joke, like, I can build them. I can't afford to live in them. So it's really nice.
Lucky for you, somebody else can.
Yeah, exactly. So, but you really hit something there that we decided as our model, that what we were going to do was, this is our art form. This is an art.
It is.
And could you imagine being an artist and painting the same picture over and over and over again?
No.
And I think that level of creativity that we have and that we approach our projects, it fits us. And there's other folks that are like more focused on growth, that are focused on listen, at the end of the day, it's the business. We're all trying to maximize the dollar.
Sure.
But this is such a repetitive and repeatable business that we want to enjoy it. Mm-hmm. And we've built the same house twice.
I know you're so funny.
And it was so boring doing it the second time. I was like, yeah, well, this goes here and that goes there.
You weren't challenged?
Not at all. Not at all. And
you and Alex are very creative, and you both have amazing taste. And in all the time that I've known you both, I was going to say, I don't know that I've ever seen you do the same house twice. Every time it's like you're always pushing the envelope and looking for something new to do and something different, which I think is interesting, but it also brings its own challenges. I mean,
it's expensive.
Right? Because you're new architectural plans.
Right.
And you're on a learning curve with each property you're doing.
Exactly.
But you seem to also thrive in that.
Yeah. Like, it's it's funny, this last couple months we've been in between projects. So we have a lot of time. And I realize, like, when you do something that you love, you want to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of going a little bit nuts.
How lucky are we, though, really?
Oh, it's a blessing. There's
right?
no doubt about it. It's an eye-opening. Like, I know retirement probably won't be something for me. Like, I'll never be
fully retired.
Yeah, like I'll always be doing something.
Yeah.
The difference is I'm looking forward to not having to do something.
Yeah, that's the key.
Difference. And right now, if I had my druthers, we'd probably pull back a little bit and wait and see. But like, I can't. I'm not ready to retire. I'm not in a situation. So we're still buying. We're still looking for inventory.
Well, and I think the market's so hot right now. It would be crazy to pull back at this point.
No, I agree. For me, it's we have enough inventory. Mm-hmm. More inventory is a little scary, and I'm getting into a situation where we might be taking on more than we can chew. But
I'm surprised by that because I know you're very conservative.
Well, like, good deals are really hard to find.
But it served you. It really has. Like, you're not one of those guys that's going to wind up upside down.
I hope not.
Hopefully.
The Detroiter in me is making sure that
well, you're scrappy.
Out. Right. And that's when we're evaluating these things, and they're checking all the boxes in terms of our inventory. It's like, well, we gotta pull the trigger, because
if a good deal comes, you got to grab
it. If I say no,
yeah.
So we'll just have to figure it out. It might mean we have to expand a little bit.
Maybe you take on some, partners, some cash partners, some silent partners.
Yeah. So we're looking for pretty much every avenue, really, of all right, how are we going to do this? How are we going to, again, maximize the bottom line, but at the same time, make sure that we still enjoy the process, that it's not something that's stressing us out and overwhelming us too much. So
True.
It will be.
Well, and you also have young kids at home, so you have to balance the family, the work life as well.
Yeah.
So
which is why I keep my bubble small, as you know. Like, we try to stay 15 minutes from home.
Yeah.
So I have breakfast with the girls. I'm home for dinner. I come in and out of the house. Like, we see them all the time. So that's an important thing too. Absolutely. Yeah.
Let's talk about if you're an investor who is, starting out and you're starting with rehabbing, what's the process like to get from there to where you're currently at, which is now doing, 7-figure builds, if that's really what someone's goal is in the long term?
I think the biggest thing for an investor or developer to make a decision, are they going to be the builder? So I had an interesting change in my philosophy. Was I always a real estate investor developer. I liked that title, but as I fell in love with construction and designing and building new homes, I became a builder. So there's a difference for sure. And I always tell people, it's like, there's a lot of ways to make money in this world. There's easier ways than building houses. I think it's a natural progression that a lot of people go through, especially if you have some success, that they want to start building. But I always tell my subs, like, people start to put the math together. Like, oh, you just made X amount of dollars and you're going to make this much over here. And I always tell people I get paid to assume risk and liability. My subcontractors get paid to build the house.
That's smart.
And I've come into lease recently. We potentially were going to have our first lawsuit, which was very scary.
Oh boy.
And I only put that out here as, maybe somebody listening to this might hear this and not make some of the same mistakes that I made. Fortunately, it was worked out, and it was a very minor issue. It was countertops that were discoloring, and the issue became between me and a subcontractor who's responsible. But it was very eye-opening. Well, what if something serious happens?
But don't you think at some point when you're doing this long enough, something's going to happen. Right. That's just the nature of what we do. I mean, we had done a rehab and we hadn't been under the house. The subs were under the house. And, we didn't know that there was debris still under the house that should have been cleaned out.
Sure.
And we weren't aware of it, And so then what happens? You get raked over the coals.
Yep.
While you're trying to process what's going on and you're trying to, figure out what your solution is going to be.
Right.
And the scary part is that, there are people that are very quick to get on social media.
Oh, yeah.
Before they even really give you a chance to, remedy the situation. And, and there's always two sides to every story. And
Yeah.
so I think that's tough too, is that, do you respond to it publicly? Do you handle it privately? In this case, we handled it privately. We knew what was put out there in social media was really not accurate. And I just didn't see the point in going back and forth with this person.
Right.
So we did the right thing. We fixed it. We let this person have their platform. And, it is what it is.
Right.
You just got to move forward. And so, and on every job we do, we always strive to put out a better product than everybody else. Because, we're rehabbing up in Kannapolis and Concord.
Right.
But it's just, we want to do a better product than what others have done. We want to put out a house that people want to live in. We want people to be happy and excited about the home, but sometimes you understand this as a builder, that when you're dealing with subcontractors, and who they're hiring, it's hard to control what everybody else is doing.
Right. I always tell people the story of when I had a very good job when I was in the medical side, and I could have continued flipping houses and maybe even built a little bit on the side. But we had an issue, some sort of leak, and it was getting dark. And I'll never forget this. I was sitting in the crawl space trying to figure out, I'm crawling around in the crawl space trying to find out what was going on. It was dark, and then I had like one of these little headlamp things on.
Yeah, like the camping
And
lights,
I turned that on, and I was like, I couldn't have been happier. And I said, okay, this is what I need to be doing. If I'm feeling good, and I'm now new construction crawl spaces, full disclosure, are very nice. Right? It's not like you're crawling
There's
around
no
in filth.
dead cats. There's no
exactly.
Yeah.
There shouldn't be. So full disclosure, it's not like, but I think
we keep it
for
real.
me, when we decided to make the jump into building, and you hear a lot of talk about, well, what's your brand? Is your brand is it the product, or is it you? And I think a lot of businesses, entrepreneurs, in particular investors and builders, struggle with that. So we're trying to merge the two. It's like, we're really happy with the pretty pictures that we put on Instagram, but we are so intimately involved in the build process, from design. We used to do all the designs ourselves and have like a draftsperson put them together.
I remember that.
We have a little bit more inventory, so we've got some help in that regard. But I'm sure our designers would agree that we're pretty hands-on with what we're looking for. But, for example, in North Carolina, as a builder, you are liable for 6 years.
Wow.
So if you give somebody a 1-year warranty, it's like, okay. But if something really serious happens, you are on the hook for up to 6 years.
So
and I've
a
even
210.
heard of a lawsuit. Yeah, well, I could talk forever about those warranties. That's
Okay.
a whole other project
Okay.
or a podcast topic. I think they're important, but they're overrated.
Okay.
And
But it gives people a sense of security, I think, and peace of mind.
Yeah, of course.
But
And I just heard of a builder who was sued after almost 10 years after the project was finished.
wow.
And it basically became, they likely wouldn't have if it would have gone to some sort of litigation, but at what cost are you going to take something to litigation? So this guy settled with the homeowner, and those things scare me, and they keep me up at night. And I've got a couple friends who've gone into building, and I tell them, I was like, especially before drywall goes on, if there's a big rainstorm and it's 2:00 in the morning, I'll drive to the house.
Yeah.
And I'll put on a flashlight, and I'm going to walk around. I'm going to catch these leaks, because every house has them.
People don't understand the amount of, I feel like they don't understand the amount of responsibility.
Right.
Like, I feel like there's a lot of people that look at investing as a way to get rich quick.
Right.
But I think if you're going to rehab, you really should be, this is somebody's home.
Right.
I hear you on the litigation and the lawsuits and all of that. I don't know. I think a lot of times
you're not necessarily, it's more of an as is purchase.
Right.
And then it comes down to like your situation. It's a little bit more moral obligation of, okay, we should have done this. This is something. At the end of the day, if they're buying a house that's 100 years old, like there's going to be...
This house was 100 years old, and our termite guy went under there and not once mentioned that there was debris under there. Mm-hmm. So there was some miscommunication that happened on that, and that was part of the issue.
Right.
But that's a story for another time.
Sure. So I think that journey, had I been aware of some of the challenges, I think till now we've been lucky. But in that luck, I don't think we've come into a lot of these issues so far because we've been so hands-on.
Well, that's what I was
There's
going to
no
say.
detail that goes into the house.
I don't think it's just luck. I really don't. Like, if you're going to say you're lucky, that would be that you've let some other GC run your job and you're not,
Right.
you've got it on autopilot. Then I would say you're lucky. But you and Alex are incredibly hands-on.
Right.
You're very involved with your projects. So no, I wouldn't call it luck. I would say that, you know, you guys are, you manage your products. You keep a hand. You know what's going on with
Right.
your home, with your houses.
You always hear that entrepreneur adage of work on your business, not in your business. But I like working in my business.
Yeah.
You know, and in each house, there will be projects that I'll take on and say, okay, I'm going to do this myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go in and actually swing a hammer. And the reason I do that is because it's going to force me to see a lot more than if I was just going to do a walkthrough.
Yeah.
I can't think of an example right now, but that's definitely an approach, and it's strategic of we're going to figure out these issues as much as we can ahead of time.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, right? We'll never be the biggest.
Mm-hmm.
We'll never do the most volume. We'll never be built. You'll never be a track builder.
No.
That's just not who you are. But you'll sleep well at night,
Right.
knowing that you put out a beautiful, product, and that, I mean, and that's what I think is really different about you guys, is that you are so involved, and it is. I mean, it's a business, but not to say emotional, but you guys are vested in your
Right.
properties. It's not just bricks and mortar.
Right.
You know?
Well, I think that's that. And as we're advancing and trying to grow the social media presence, and you start talking, you get that question of what's your brand? Well, sometimes your brand develops over time. And you're not just going to sit here in a meeting and put down some bullet points on a whiteboard and say, okay, this is our brand. Because I think that there's a lot of builders, and there's a lot of possibilities where you say, well, this is our brand. But if that quality isn't necessarily there, your brand might be developing behind you. Does that make sense?
I think you guys naturally evolved into your brand. Does that make sense?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. We're still struggling, because if someone said, what's your
Yeah.
brand? I'd be like, I don't know. How do you articulate it?
But that's the thing, right? You go in as a builder. Now all of a sudden you're a business person, and now you're having to do social media, and you're having to do a website. Like, what do a website? What do I know about that? And
Exactly.
so it's so multifaceted what we do when you're an entrepreneur and when you're self-employed, because it's not just,
Right.
being the builder. But
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for us is everything is us. Like, my wife does she's intimately involved with the social media. She does all the website. She
Yeah.
does all the design. She does all the, while taking care of a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old.
Well, I know when I respond to your Instagram that I'm responding to Alex.
Yeah, you
For
can
the most
tell,
part, right? I know.
Sometimes
I know
might
we can
respond.
talk. We can talk back and forth.
You know if it's me or Alex or Amara, because they'll include emojis. You will not get an emoji from me.
That's funny.
Yeah, that's how you know who it is. Because sometimes I'll respond if someone has a specific question.
So I'm going to circle back to, how do you go from rehabbing houses to becoming a 7-figure builder? Because I know we kind of squirreled in a couple different directions there.
That's
I know.
certainly that's a loaded question.
Well, what was the path for you? Is that an easier question?
Yeah, like kind of what I was saying when I decided to go get my license, basically because I just couldn't handle working with incompetent people anymore. Where we found love is we sharpened our teeth with an addition. So it was a rehab that we're in the middle of, and we knew I think I could build for this amount, and the price per square foot was much more. So let's try it, and I just love that process.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is the key. You have to love. If you're looking at rehabbing and going, ugh, I'm going to build because it's so much easier. There's less unknowns. Well,
Yeah.
absolutely not.
I don't think that's the right approach.
It's not the
personally,
case.
right?
It's harder.
Yeah.
Flipping a house is easier, and also easier.
You're
I
the
think,
first person I've heard say
warranty-wise.
that. Really? Why do you think that's easier?
I think it depends on the stage of the rehab,
Yeah.
right? I think flipping a house is easier, number one, because you don't have a lot of the same people are buying those houses as is.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not necessarily on the hook. And when you're rehabbing, you're not necessarily putting your name out there. And at the end of the day, you're going to rehab something that's already there.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you're building a house, let's say in a rehab, you've got 100 steps. If you're building a house, you probably have 300 steps.
Mm-hmm.
So it's significantly more time, significant more, and then you're going through decisions like, where do you put your toilet? In a rehab, it's already there.
All right, but here's the problem, right? Let's say you have a rehab, which we have, and it was advertised as a 4-2. It's really not a 4-2. It's a 2-2 because one bedroom, you have to walk through a bedroom to get to the second bedroom or the third bedroom, or whatever it is, the
Isn't
fourth
it amazing
bedroom.
that they lived like that back then?
I'm amazed that this was even put on MLS like this.
Right.
And the fourth bedroom has no closets, which I understand. It's an early 1900s house, but it's really not a true 4-2. And so now we're trying to figure out how we can make it a 4-2. And have access to each of the bedrooms without having to walk through a bedroom to get to the bedroom,
Right.
So now we're having to create, hallways, or we're having to reconfigure. And, oh, by the way, these are load-bearing walls, so we probably don't want to really, do we want to shift those? Well, now if we shift those, now it's a lot more cost. Now it's a lot more time. Now it's, so we're looking at what's basically a rectangle of a house that has a almost 6-foot wide hallway straight down the middle of it. And then you've got rooms on each side, and then you've got rooms in the back. And so we're actually going back up there again this afternoon. We were there yesterday, and we're going back up again and reevaluating it again. Does this make sense? Does this make sense? Because the way it is now with this hallway, you've got what is probably like the parlor on one side and what was being used as the master bedroom on the other. And we were like, well, if we make these all bedrooms, you're coming in the house and what are you seeing? It's boring. It's not interesting. You're walking down a huge main hall, and how can we capture some of that square footage from that 6-foot width? But yet these are, load-bearing walls on each side. So, okay, well, we can open up the doorways. We can make them much wider openings. That could help. And, but now we're talking about taking the kitchen from the back and putting it, making that master bedroom a dining room. And then, so we're moving everything.
Right. Well, you're almost new construction at that point. Yeah. You're going down to a blank slate.
By the way, we've got some rotted girders, so that's always fun too.
Exactly. So that's definitely a bigger, more involved project. I guess when I was thinking, I was thinking like more like cosmetic. That's always going to be a much easier.
Does anybody get a lipstick rehab anymore? It doesn't feel like they do.
I think you're seeing them out where you're at, Statesville and smaller areas. Like if the house is under 250,000, and I think that exists. Gastonia.
I don't know where they are. Yeah. I got to find the wholesalers that have those.
I see them. See them from time to time.
Yeah.
But, so going back to your question of moving into building, you just got to decide if it's something that you truly love. Mm-hmm. And are you willing to put your name and your bank account on the line to put that product up?
Yeah.
Because the folks that are getting into it, if you really stop and think about what your liability is, it's scary. It's really scary.
Let's talk about spec houses versus custom builds.
Yeah.
I actually was just on vacation in Florida, and we decided to take a drive over to Palm Beach. Holy cow. I mean, the houses in Palm Beach are ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, the one house we went to was tiny, that a friend had actually stayed in, like the pool house, the room above the garage, and had rented that out from a lady who lives down there. And so we wound up driving. And it's like the Beverly Hills of the Southeast. It's kind of crazy. And you're driving past, and there's these just mansions. I mean, they're ridiculous. And this is an area where, if someone was going to buy there, you wouldn't do a spec home there because somebody's going to knock it down. That's the kind of money that's down there.
Right.
And build something brand new. So they'll spend millions on something they're going to knock down because it's not what they want.
Sure.
Now, granted, that's not our situation here in Charlotte, but it really did have me thinking about spec homes versus custom builds here. And it's, we're, a lot of our, 7-figure ones are lower 7 figures, but now we're starting to see 5, 6, 7 million in, up at the lake and, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on doing a custom build versus a spec?
From the perspective of a client or from my perspective?
However you want to answer it, you let me know.
Well, let's start with if you're a client.
Okay.
And you decide you want to build a house. Or you want a new home.
Okay.
I think there's a big misconception that it's cheaper to build your own house. Say, well, I'm just going to find a lot and I'm going to hire a builder and we're just going to do it ourselves. Well, that key of hiring a builder, that's when it becomes a very expensive undertaking. And the reason being, if I build a house and I finish it, so it's me and my wife, and we go through the design process and finishing and all of that. We do that at night. We have our conversations. We do it. It's just the two of us.
Right.
But now if I have a custom client,
Mm-hmm.
that now I'm adding somebody else to those conversations. So
Mm-hmm.
my work and my time commitment to that single home doubles, minimal.
Doubles. Okay.
Especially from the approach that we take. That is, if we're going to do custom, it's going to be custom. And we've got some different options now as we've evolved, so for people to buy a spec home and maybe pick a paint color, or, do these types of things. But if are you interested in picking door hinges? Are you interested in how many can lights go in this space or whatever? Those, like, how involved you really want to be,
right?
And are you willing to pay for that?
Right.
Because you're going to be paying not only to build the house, you're going to be paying for your builder's time.
Good point.
That's a big misconception I think that people have out there. And even right now, we have several projects that are being built as spec, and we get phone calls. Hey, we're interested, and but we want to pick a paint color, or we want to pick this. That we'll start devising different buying options.
Mm-hmm.
But most of those decisions that you're going to make up front, likely going to pay for out of pocket.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, makes sense, because if the person walks, and now you have a house that has a purple bedroom,
exactly.
I mean, I know that's extreme, but,
right. Yeah, I got to repaint it.
Right. Right.
Exactly.
Now you've got to bring someone in to repaint it, to neutralize it, that sort of thing.
Right.
I mean, how when you're talking custom, you're talking people's individual taste, whereas, doing a spec, you're putting out there what you think is going to appeal to the most people.
See, that's one thing with our spec business that we've changed that mindset. And when we're designing and building a house, we're trying to attract one buyer.
Okay.
We're not going to sell this house to multiple people.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we do want it to be pretty. We want everyone to like it. But at the end of the day, we're trying to find one person.
Mm-hmm.
And when we've kept our vision consistent,
mm-hmm.
so we're always trying to, like I said, this is an art form. We're always trying to do something a little bit different, something unique. And at the end of the day, you got 4 walls and a roof. Like, it's really hard. And everybody has Pinterest and HGTV. So everybody sees
yes.
the same stuff, everything.
Right.
There's nothing. I laugh when builders think that what they're doing is proprietary. It's like, no, you don't. Like that, I can pick that out of a catalog. Like,
Yeah.
It's
the
how you put it.
wall with the moldings on it.
Exactly.
That's a Pinterest thing.
Right. There's very little that's doable.
Right.
With a budget that you haven't seen online.
Right.
So it's putting those things together to attract the right person. It was a very peaceful feeling when we came into that in our business with our spec homes. Of this is going to be, not everyone's going to come in here and think that this is neat, whatever the feature is. But the person that's going to buy this house is going to love it. And keeping that vision and keeping everything together has really helped, and it's made it fun and exciting designing these things and putting them all together.
Mm-hmm.
Where we're not trying to appeal to the masses. Now, most people like the stuff,
mm-hmm.
but I guess it's just a mindset that we've adapted, and so far has worked. So.
Has there been a spec house that when you were done, you guys were like, we should just keep this one and move into it?
Almost everyone.
Everyone, right?
Yeah, almost everyone. Well, if we don't sell this one, maybe we'll move in. Especially we have a very small house
mm-hmm.
in Noda, and as our family has gotten bigger, we're busting at the seams. So
yeah,
we're either going to do an addition or build one. But that's part of our model is, if we can't sell it, would we live in it? So we don't build anything that we wouldn't live in. Huh. Sometimes you get a little nervous with some of the price tags, but it's definitely, whether it be location or anything about the house when we're designing it, like we're not looking to just cut costs, and I think the money comes with the product. If you're proud of your product, someone's going to be willing to pay for it. But that's a big thing, is would we live in it?
That's your secondary exit strategy?
Yeah, you never know. You never know, just in case.
So as we're getting ready to wrap up, can you believe it went that quick?
No.
I know, right? Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Is there anything you specifically want to touch upon or talk about before we go?
Not necessarily. I've got my little notes in front of me here. I think what I would want to reiterate to anybody who's deciding if they want to become a builder or build homes as an investment is, again, I know I've already said it, but you are getting paid to assume risk and liability.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to make really sure what's happening on these houses. You need to learn. You need to take the time, educate yourself on building science, efficiencies, waterproofing, airproofing, these types of things that truly come down and don't really present themselves as problems in a home until 5, 6, 7 years down the road.
And where would somebody learn about that? Or how would somebody learn about that?
YouTube is a phenomenal resource.
Okay.
There's some really good, really strong building science classes that you can take here in Charlotte, which we've been doing quite a bit.
CPCC?
No, there's different academies. The North Carolina Home Builder Association has a program.
Okay.
The pandemic's complicated everything from that perspective.
Sure.
And then for anybody looking to build a home for themselves,
mm-hmm.
I would just make sure that you remember that there's a big difference between heated square footage and under roof. I can't tell you how many times someone comes to me and says, we want a small house. We want a 2,000 square foot house. Okay, great. But you also want a covered deck that's 500 square feet. You want a wraparound porch. You want a 2.5 car garage. So that 2,000 square foot building is actually 4,000 square feet.
Wow.
And now maybe you don't even have that. It's nowhere near your budget. Is to understand everything costs money to build, not just the heated space, and keep that in mind.
So when you sit down and you talk with a potential client, do you kind of go into all of that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially if they're coming to me with, we want you to build this house.
Mm-hmm.
I would say get a builder involved early. Mm-hmm. We've done it a few times as consultants. So we didn't even build the house,
mm-hmm.
but we're kind of involved as a consultant during the process
mm-hmm.
to help mitigate, and be a third party, but also especially during the design phase.
Gotcha.
You want to have a builder involved early.
Yeah.
To help you stay, start with your budget, work backwards is what I always say, not the inverse.
I think the tough part too is like there's been times I've hired contractors where I've done like a bathroom remodel and I didn't know what I didn't know, so I was counting on them and their knowledge. And there's one in my past that I look back now and I go, this was terrible design, and it's like there was so much going on at that time, like it fell under my radar, but I feel like the general contractor should have been the one to say, hey, this is not a good design. We need to do this instead of this.
Sure.
Like having your vanity on one side and your toilet on the other. Generally should all be on the same wall, especially if you want to access, in your shower and be able to turn your shower on. Having the toilet on the same side of the wall as where your shower handles are, It's not good design,
right.
So lesson learned there. But it's, I think that's the thing is people, they need to understand that who you hire is important. And it's not always about, just the bottom line, the number. You got to hire somebody that's reputable and knows what they're doing and is going to give you good advice. I mean, I took interior design back in college, and I think about form follows function, and we were just talking about that the other day and how important that is. Like, it's great if it looks pretty, but is it functional? Does it make sense? Can you open up your dishwasher and still be able to walk, somebody walk by, or can you not open your dishwasher and your stove at the same time because, of the way that they're set up in the kitchen? I mean, it's your triangle. Like these are things that I think a lot of people, it's just not even on their radar because it's not what they normally do. Right. So you really want to hire somebody.
Yeah. And I think that's what's so important. I think the people that I know who have built houses who have struggled for the most part, they hire a company and they basically get assigned to somebody who helps them pick finishes, and they get assigned as a project manager who's doing the construction, and there's like a coordinator. Part of our brand is us, right? It's our product and it's us. So that's the brand. So when we do these custom homes, or even if it's a spec and that we sell early, so we do a pre-sale, you're dealing with us.
Right.
And I'm the one who's going in and we're seeing these issues, and I'm the one that we're going to have the conversations about where you want to put a light switch or whatever.
Right. It's so crazy, right? Even where you put the light switches on what wall when you walk into a room.
Yeah, exactly.
Should it go on the right side? Should it go on the left side? Which way is the door opening? It's all that minutia that people just don't even factor in.
Right.
If people wanted to see your work or wanted to get in touch with you, how would they find you?
Certainly our website, which is Roma-Homes.com.
ROMA.
Yep.
Dash HOMES.com. Okay.
And we're on Instagram at Roma Homes.
Okay.
Those are probably the best two.
Okay.
And then my cell phone's on the website. My email's on the website. So
You're brave.
Yeah. We're not hiding.
There you go. Right in plain sight, right?
That's right.
So thanks for joining me today. I cannot believe how quickly this time went.
I know.
You know,
yeah,
but I always enjoy speaking with you, so it's always good. So, all right. Well, I hope you guys found this helpful and enjoyable. Be sure to join us next time, and we'll talk soon.